Hey everybody, how's it going? Corona here. James, also known as BaconMob, is with me.
Hello.
Welcome back to my Let's Get Real series. This is the series, for those who don't know, where I talk about kind of deeper topics. I like to do more kind of in-depth discussion and those kind of things. And I know I said that I was going to try to steer away from gaming for a little bit, but this is a video I've been kind of wanting to do for a little while now with James. And as some of you may or may not know, um, James and I do a lot of in-depth discussions, especially on his channel. I think we just did the one on Smash on my channel, wasn't it?
On Smash,
Something
I
like
think that
that.
was the last one we did. Yeah, it was like it was the last one we did before Smash Ultimate came out. I think, like on the
It was
last
like a live
Smash
stream.
Direct. And yeah, we did
Yeah, it was
that
like a
live.
live
That's
stream
true.
I think we did on my channel. But anyway, I've been really wanting to do this for a while, and as the title suggests, this is going to be another in-depth discussion about gaming. But this one's kind of special. I've been kind of thinking about this one a lot, and like gaming really has, I think, in my personal opinion, um, it's really become a huge part of our society, part of our pop culture, part of our daily lives in many ways. I mean, if you really think about it, you have everybody in the world has a gaming device on hand at all time, their phone, and so many people play video games, and the industry itself has evolved so fast since I started playing games. I mean, you and I started in the Super NES days. I think the very
Mhm.
first console I ever played was a Atari 2600, which was before my time, but it just goes to show you like the evolution of gaming as a whole within the last short 30, 40 years of its existence. It's been huge, and it's really been a huge driver, in my opinion, of technology as a whole. So
Mhm.
I just really thought it would be awesome to finally have like kind of really an in-depth discussion about what the future holds for gaming, and to talk about, obviously, I couldn't think of anybody better than James. So welcome, James. Thanks for like joining me on this. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean,
And so this will be. Go ahead. Sorry.
oh no, I mean, I'm happy to be here.
Thanks. So this will be the first ever, and hopefully not last, guest that I have on Let's Get Real. So I guess we can get right into it here. I'm going to kind of conduct this interview style, as I told you, and there's a whole bunch of topics I want to cover, but I thought maybe the best place to start right now, just kind of to start us off a little slow, would be like the next gen of consoles. And I'm just wondering what your opinion is on what the next generation is gonna like, how like what's gonna change from this generation to the next generation.
Well, I think the main thing we're probably going to see again is like we're going to see people go towards getting rid of physical media. Like I think that's a trend that's going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like you kind of saw Microsoft try to go towards that when they first announced the Xbox One,
Mm-hmm.
and like there's rumors that the next Xbox is going to have multiple iterations, but that one of those isn't even going to have a disk drive. Um, there's other examples like there's streaming boxes like even though it was kind of a failure, the Steam Link, um, and then you have the example of Assassin's Creed Odyssey being streamed through Google Chrome pretty recently. So like streaming and downloading is just going to become more and more of a thing. So I think you're not really going to see a lot of discs and cartridges going forward. That's
Yeah,
that.
and it seems to be that way in all sorts of media. I mean, like kind of DVDs are going away because of Netflix and stuff, and obviously music has been like that for quite a while now, pretty much since the turn of the millennium here, and it just makes logical sense that games would go that way, right? You know.
Yeah, like you've already seen that disappear pretty much with movies and music. Like Blu-rays is kind of a niche thing.
Mm-hmm.
CDs have become so unpopular that they're actually like neck and neck with vinyl now because vinyl has kind of made a comeback uh, as a niche
I
product.
apparently vinyl's actually outsold CDs on.
Yeah, I think they've actually like surpassed CDs at this point. But
Yeah.
that's like again like much more of a niche market than everyone else who's just going on Spotify and YouTube for music, and everyone's
Yeah.
just going on Netflix and what have you for Amazon and for movies and TV. And like the line between movies and TV is kind of blurring too. Like you're just kind of getting general content whether it's like limited run series or whether something has seasons or not. Like you're kind of just binging everything. It's not really we're not consuming content in the same way that we used to with movies and TV. So I think games are going to obviously follow suit.
Hmm.
Like Microsoft introducing the Games Pass, EA having their own version of that with Origin. Like you're already seeing a lot of stuff like that. The Humble monthly bundle, PlayStation Plus, all this stuff is like foreshadowing what's to come. I think with the next generation.
Has Sony said yet, like what they're are they? Do we know? I don't think we really know anything about the PS5. It seems like Microsoft's being a bit more transparent than the Sony
Well, it's all
about things.
rumors about Microsoft, but I think Sony said they will be talking about the PS5 at E3 this year, or possibly next year. I can't remember which one, but I think they actually said they would be talking about it at least.
Yeah, it even seems like Nintendo's kind of pushing. Oddly enough, like even they're really pushing for more digital distribution as well. Like I mean, there's tons of games you just can't get a physical copy of.
Well,
You know?
yeah, I mean, the publishers themselves, like, and the console makers themselves are going to make more money selling stuff directly to us because they don't have to give a cut to
Hmm.
the retailers, however small it's going to be, and they don't have to spend money producing, the cases and the manuals and the discs.
Do you also feel like alongside of moving to like trying to, I guess, move to pretty much an all um, digital based market? Like, do you think that we're going to also be seeing more of games as a service, kind of like Netflix style stuff too?
Yeah, like the Xbox Games Pass is a good example of that already.
Right.
Like Microsoft, because they're not really doing so hot this generation, they're kind of being forced to offer that at a really good value. Like they're pretty much just giving away all their new AAA games, all their new first-party games. As long as you have that subscription, you're just getting those games the day they come out. Like you don't have to wait.
Hmm.
You don't have to go out and buy them. You don't have to pay anything for them extra as long as you have that Games Pass. So I think we're going to see a lot more stuff like that where they're just uh, and stuff like Fortnite too, where like it's the game is kind of more of an ongoing service. Like you're kind of unlocking extra content through a lot more microtransactions
Hmm.
than you are actually buying a full-fledged product.
What is your like? What's your like? What are your thoughts on that? Does
Well,
does the yeah? Sorry, go ahead.
it's okay. For certain franchises like Call of Duty, I think that's a perfect model. Like because people were pretty much buying the same thing over and over anyway, or like Madden or FIFA, anything like that. Like there's a lot of games where to expect developers to completely redo a campaign and completely rebuild these assets from scratch year after year with like the expectations of graphics getting so crazy, like it's just unrealistic. So I think the model is more sustainable considering how expensive games have gotten.
Yeah. Um. How how does it make you feel personally? Like, are you like will you be sad to eventually see physical media go away, or like do you think it still has like some kind of value to it, or do you think it makes just more logical sense and is better for the industry to move to a completely digital based system?
Well, I personally have kind of embraced it already just because I've
Hmm.
already been using Steam for so long. I've already preferred to get my games digitally on like my 3DS and my Switch and my PS4.
Hmm.
So, like, I definitely still have a ton of plastic cases on my shelf here, but like, I think, like, in terms of like space constraints and in terms of like environmental concerns too, like, I think it's better. And like, it's just more convenient, in my opinion, too, to just have it all there and to just be able to play it. Not have to,
Hmm.
like, I mean, I hate to say it, but not have to, like, get up and, like, grab something off the shelf and throw it into your console, right?
Yeah, that's very true. You make a really good point, especially on the environmental factor. That's a really good thing, and the idea of you know it is hugely convenient, especially with the Switch. I mean, like especially that you can have all these games. I mean, the problem with the Switch is I've already used up my
Yeah.
USB or SD card rather,
Oh, really?
in theory, it's great to have all these games, you know, right there. Or if even with the PlayStation or the Xbox, you have one console sitting there. You don't have to keep changing discs. You don't have to go through all of that. You could just go to a menu and you're done. It's definitely has its strengths. That's for sure. I feel like there is something, as was the case with, like, we used example music before, like not having the physical media. There is something that's lost at the same time, which kind of sucks, but it does make more logical sense, I guess, to go in that direction.
Yeah, there is definitely something to, like, especially like those old big box PC games that would come with maps, or like those old NES games that would come with like those in-depth manuals that you would kind of need to be able to understand the game. Like,
Yeah,
you do lose something there, but I don't know. Like, it's not like it's like you see with the SNES Classic. Like, even though it's not on the system, like they did upload all the manuals for all those games. All you have to do is scan a QR code,
yeah,
and it's right there on your phone, right? So I mean, I don't know. We have alternatives to these things, right?
yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah, it's just interesting that everything, not just gaming, but like everything is moving in that direction where it's like these things. It's almost like these things don't exist because they don't exist in any kind of physical form. It's just data. It's an odd thing to think about, versus, like, I remember seeing an image of, like, uh, what was it? It was like all of this, like all of these, like, electronic items from, like, the early '90s are now in this one item, and it was like a picture of, I think it was like a Walkman, a VCR, a telephone, like all of these, like, big
Camera.
bulky electronics, and then it just showed the slim, like, iPhone, and it's kind of wild to think, you know, just how technology itself has changed since the early '90s. I mean, when we were young kids to now, and uh, it'll be interesting to see where we go from, another 20 years from now. How is it going to be? You know, I mean, we've already talked about this before, like the notion of, like, um, AI and things, even kind of transcending, the real world. It'll be interesting to see
Yeah.
how immersive games become. How, um, I don't know. It's going to be just a completely different animal than it was, when we were growing up playing games. So it's
It's
just it's
crazy.
really it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's. I don't think we like. I don't think I ever thought that like I'd be actually trying VR headsets and like they'd be available for
Hmm.
consumers like by the time I was 30, like, and I'd just be like able to like when we went to Retro Game Con, like I was able to like just try one right there, and it
Yeah,
was crazy.
VR is one thing that I have on my list here that I thought maybe we would discuss. So I don't know if you had any more thoughts as in terms of, like, where you think that's going to go. It might be something that's hard to predict, but maybe in the immediate future at least.
I mean, it's. I think it's going to take a long time to catch on because it is still very prohibitively prohibitive. Sorry, prohib. Yeah, I can't say the word, but it's too expensive for people.
Prohibitively, is that what it is?
Prohibitively, there we go.
Prohibitively, yeah.
Expensive for people. Like those headsets are insanely expensive. Like even when they're on sale, they're still $300-400 at least,
Hmm.
and you need like a beast of a computer usually. But I mean, they're working on headsets that are self-contained.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't think it's going to really crack the market for a while. And plus, they don't really have their killer app yet either. Um, Even though obviously developers are trying, and there's a ton of developers who have dived right into that space, and like there's tons of VR games coming out every week, really.
Hmm.
Um, but it still seems to be a pretty niche market right now. But I mean, I'm sure it will catch on. I'm sure we are going to be living in like Ready Player One land in
Yeah,
like a couple of decades.
a movie I still have to see. I know a little bit about it, so I kind of know where you're going, but I've got to see that movie, so I
Yeah,
guess better.
and speaking of AI transcending the real world, you should definitely check out Westworld as well.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that too. VR is an interesting thing. I really enjoyed it when we went up to Toronto and we played VR. or we tried out the VR with you guys. It's a very insane experience. You really do feel like you're part of the game, and it's an odd thing to think that someday we're going to be living in a world where it's almost like you're going to be living in two worlds. Like there's the real world, and then there's VR.
Yeah,
You
there's
can
going to be like a
completely
digital
immerse yourself
world.
in some completely alien world that's just, it's right there. You just put on the headset and that's it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It kind of it doesn't quite already exist because we don't really have like an MMO that you can
Mm-hmm.
go into with it yet. We have like VR chat and like a few other competitive games or whatever, but yeah, it's going to be really cool to see it evolve and to see like where companies like Facebook take Oculus or where Microsoft takes mixed reality. You have some pretty big players. I'm sure Google has kind of dabbled in VR a little bit. I mean, Apple hasn't really yet. Even
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo might. With the Switch is kind of a perfect system to put inside a little VR headset. Like it would work perfectly.
Yeah.
So like I could see it happening. Like so, it's going to be interesting. It's probably going to be like the new frontier, the new kind of big war in tech to see who like can emerge as the big player.
Do you think that someday, that much like how obviously like physical media is being replaced by digital media, do you think that in terms of gaming that replace traditional like games holding a controller, looking at a screen? Like, do you think eventually like VR will just be the standard, and there won't be
I think
any room for that kind of classic style gameplay?
I think that would take like several generations, and not just of consoles, but like of people, for them to be
Yeah,
phased out.
well,
Because
that's why I say way off, like way like in the future.
yeah, like because like at least for our lifetimes, there's always going to be people who grew up with that stuff and who want that stuff. Just like there's always going to be people who want to listen to records,
Yeah,
and who want to watch movies on Blu-ray or whatever, or Laserdisc or whatever your preference.
yeah, true, true.
Um,
It's odd to think that some of the things that feel so technologically like at this point like innovative are eventually going to just be. I mean, it's like anything else. I know that, but like to us now, like something like VR is incredible. But like by the time we're old men, it's gonna be like, oh, that old ancient technology. And it's like, what is going to be existing that is going to make that look like ancient technology? It's very, very, it's very
yeah,
fascinating.
like it's crazy to think that that thing we were wearing on our heads is like going to look big and bulky in 20 years,
Yep.
the way that like a Commodore 64 looks to us now.
It may be like literally putting on a pair of glasses at some point, and
Yeah, I'm
that's it.
sure. Or
And it
even
just detects
contact
the movements
lenses.
of your hands and all that stuff, and it could be something as simple as that, which is insane to think about. You
It
know?
is, yeah. It is. I mean, we've got the Consumer Electronics Show coming up in like a few days, actually. So
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna be, I mean, there's gonna be tons of cool concepts at that, for all kinds of stuff. So we'll see what they show off there.
It's exciting, yeah. Maybe we can do another discussion video on your channel or something about that if we
Yeah, I wouldn't
both.
mind covering some of this stuff if it was interesting. I mean, it's not always that
Yeah.
interesting, but it might be.
um, to step back a little bit, because I was talking about, and because we just happened to kind of stumble into VR.
Oh, true.
Uh, the, so I was talking about the next generation of consoles, and I thought maybe, just again, we'll stick to like the sort of next generation or next couple of generations. I'm wondering what you think about the specifically for each of the three big players, like Sony,
Hmm.
Microsoft, and Nintendo, like where you see those individual companies going. Whether you think like the next gen or the next couple gens or whatever.
I think Nintendo specifically would probably be the last one to get out of the like traditional console market because they're
Right.
the ones that like stick to their guns and stick to traditions the most.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think the Microsoft Xbox Games Pass is much more likely to become nothing but a service that you use on whatever console or platform you want, especially if the
Mm-hmm.
next Xbox is not a big success, like the Xbox One wasn't either.
Yeah.
um, and it's the same with PlayStation. Like, I think they're going to try to position PlayStation Now, their streaming service that they already have, as like more of a thing with the PS5, and like it's the same with like they already have their foot in their door with VR as well. So like they're pretty well positioned. Um, you know,
Go ahead.
I don't know. I don't know what else to say about Sony other than like they like just are in a much better position with like the franchises they have and the development houses they have with the
Mhm.
reputation of just putting out big games that are huge successes.
Do
So
you think we're going to see another flip flop? The PS2 was clearly the the big console of that generation, and then the 360 was sort of the big console of the following one, and then it went back to the PlayStation. Do you think maybe we'll see Microsoft kind of take off in the next generation, and maybe Sony doesn't do as well?
I don't know. I think maybe like I think Sony's going to emerge as like the big kind of like Hollywood style blockbuster
Hmm.
publisher of video games, and I think Microsoft is going to potentially step back because like their new CEO Satya Nadella isn't necessarily as into establishing Xbox as a competitor to
Hmm.
Sony as their previous CEO was, and like now that Bill Gates isn't with them anymore, and like now that that other guy I can't remember his name, but the guy who would like was like seriously into like competing with Sony, he's like not at the company anymore.
Hmm.
And the new head of Microsoft Game Studios, Phil Spencer, seems to be much more focused on just like doing what consumers want, and consumers want Microsoft to be doing stuff on the PC and the Xbox. And
Aren't Microsoft also buying? Aren't Microsoft buying up like a bunch of smaller studios? Aren't they trying to?
yeah, they've been buying a
Thought
lot
I
of like
heard that.
independent and like kind of like double A, I guess you could call them studios, like
Yeah.
mid tier studios that used to make some of them like Oblivion have been around for a long time, and like they used to make big games like Fallout New Vegas.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I don't. I think Microsoft's honestly going to probably go back to focusing more on PC development because the PC has really emerged as a pretty viable platform over the past 5 or 10 years, and the Xbox has been losing so much ground to the PlayStation. It wasn't even just with the Xbox One. Like the Xbox 360, actually, in its second half of its lifespan, lost a ton of ground to the PS3,
Right.
and like it's just
Yeah.
been kind of downhill ever since then.
Yeah. The PS3 ended up overall selling more than the 360. Right. It
At
just
the end,
wasn't until
yeah,
the end. Right. Yeah.
like the 360 sold better in North America, but the PS3 sold better everywhere else. So in the
Do you
end,
think it's valuable for the industry to have all three as viable options, like all three companies? Like, do you think they all bring enough differently to the table where they're all three of them are integral, or do you think maybe maybe not?
I think competition is definitely good. Like I definitely
Yeah,
like there being at least three of them. Like it would even be interesting to see someone else emerge as a new competitor. Um, I don't
that's
know.
that brings me to one of the questions. Actually, this is you're making my life easy here, Matt. One of the questions I had on here was what companies will leave the industry, or as you said with Microsoft as the example, maybe like stepping back. And is there room for more competition in console gaming?
Yeah, I think there's always room for more competition if someone actually brings something to the table. Like, I guess the developers of Project Cars are trying to release some new console. I have no idea
Mm-hmm.
how that's going to work out for them. But apparently, it's going to be like 4K, 60 FPS, like the most powerful console
Wow,
yet. Um,
damn, wow.
but it could just be vaporware. Like, who knows? I only just heard about it.
What about the Atari VCS? No.
I mean, yeah, there's that. There's some Coleco thing too. I think
Yeah.
there's always new people trying to get a piece of the pie. Maybe even Epic, if they're successful with their games store, maybe they'll release some kind of micro console that streams games or something like that.
Mhm.
It's anything's possible.
It'd be crazy if Sega just came out of nowhere and like was successful again. I'd love
What
that, but that's never gonna happen.
well, what I'd love to see is like if Netflix style services become a thing. Like, wouldn't it be cool if you could just buy like a Sega Pass or a Nintendo
Yeah,
Pass and then just get all
that'd be
their
great.
games and you just pay like a monthly fee? And like you see Nintendo starting to get towards that with NES games. But like imagine if a few years down the road it's just like you pay that monthly fee and you just have access to like their entire back catalog and everything that comes out going forward. Like
Mhm.
that would be a pretty cool future. I don't know. in my opinion.
The one company you didn't talk about was what do you think Nintendo's going to be doing? In like the next few years. I mean, they always seem, obviously for me, Nintendo is the near and dear one of my heart. I am.
Yeah, me too.
They are not beyond my criticism, however. But do
No.
you think, I personally always feel that Nintendo is going to be behind in terms of hardware. I think that's just how it is.
Yeah, that's how they do things.
But they're always interesting, and I think they're so important because they do things like the Wii, they do things like the Switch that totally change the industry. And
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, what their next big thing is going to be after the Switch. I mean, I know it's really early, but like within the next gen, because technically, I guess the Wii U and the Switch are this current gen, technically, or something. It's kind of odd.
The
but
Switch is kind of its own gen, I guess. Like the
Yeah.
Wii U kind of was the competitor to the PS4 and the Xbox One. I feel like it came out a year before them, but yeah, I think Nintendo's going to try to ride out the Switch as long as possible. I think they're going to make like a new Switch or a Switch Pro or whatever at some point. Because why wouldn't they? I don't know. Like it just seems
But
like.
beyond that, where do you think they could go? That's the thing, because they've now
honestly,
they've now managed to, like, they've always been known for the
changing it.
handheld market. They've always dominated that, and they've done reasonably well depending on the gen with consoles.
Yeah.
But now that it's one, they don't really have any. I mean, it seems like if they were to release two separate, like a separate, home console and a separate handheld console, that would be redundant after the Switch. So
I definitely don't see that happening again. Like
but I wonder what the next step was for them.
they're conceding that smartphones have taken over the portable market by doing this. They're conceding that they can't have a separate portable system and compete with them. But I was gonna say, like, honestly, as like powerful and like as the next Switch or whatever the upgrade may be, as like successful as the Switch may be, I knowing Nintendo, like they will probably just come out of left field and come up with some other gimmick for whatever some new console is, and like they'll try to respond to this clear superiority of like the online infrastructure and technology that the other companies have with some gimmick, like just like the Switch, because it worked for them, whatever it may be. But I honestly, like after the Wii U, and the Switch, I honestly have no freaking clue what their next system could possibly be. Other than it's probably just going to be a gimmick of some sort.
I've never felt so clueless as to what their next step is. It's like, where could they possibly go?
Yeah, I just know it's probably going to be another gimmick. But other than that, I really can't predict it.
Well, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. You mentioned like VR. It'll be interesting what their take.
Yeah, I mean they'll probably do something with VR on the Switch, I imagine. I don't know why they wouldn't just do that. So like, I don't know. It's hard to imagine they'll do anything new for quite a while. That's why it's so hard to predict.
Yeah, it's true. I guess moving on, and we touched on this a little bit, and I'm really curious about your opinions on this one. So basically, PC versus mobile versus console gaming, and I'm wondering, like, these are sort of the three. Like, I know a lot of people say that console gaming is sort of I guess the dying,
people thought so
of the
before
three. It's I would maybe not dying, but it's certainly like not mobile. I would argue that mobile is obviously the one that's dominating everything. But as you mentioned, PC has become a huge thing with like Steam.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think the future is going to look like there? I mean, do you think we're eventually going to see consoles die off, or is it going to be just PC and mobile? Do you think mobile will die off? Do you think not maybe die off but change? How do you think? What's your opinion on that?
I think the three of them will just become more and more indistinguishable from each other. But I think like people were predicting that because of mobile that consoles were just going to die off until the PS4 came out and until the Switch came out. And then they completely decimated people's expectations and did even better than the previous consoles.
Yep.
So like, I don't think consoles are going anywhere anytime soon at all.
Yeah.
Like, and like, I thought that I would like become like more of a PC gamer. Like I know I built like a pretty good PC game, like gaming PC. Like I bought a huge back catalog of games on Switch. I mean on Steam. In sales over the years, But like when it comes down to it, like I still prefer the experience of playing a game on a console. Like console games work 100% of the time, and I just like the experience of sitting on a living room couch and like, well, I guess they don't work 100% of the time anymore with like Fallout 76 and stuff like that, but you know what I mean. Like there are certain PC games over the years that I've had that have just not worked because of hardware or software issues or whatever. And I don't really like sitting at a desk as much. I don't like finagling with the settings to get controllers to work or to get it displaying on the right monitor or whatever. Like at the end of the day, like maybe it's just because I grew up playing console games, but like once I bought a PS4, like I was right back sitting on my couch like playing console games like 90% of the time. Like I just wasn't going on my computer anymore or even my Steam Link. Even though I had more games on it, I just preferred that console experience. That's why I picked up a Switch too, because I just like it better. I don't know. That's just me personally, but so
And
that
they're all different experiences. That's the other thing. It's like it's hard. How
yeah,
could you have like say you could somehow I don't know. The idea of like merging the three of them together seems impossible because they're all different experiences. That's like the difference between like listening to music, playing music, and dancing to music. You know, they're all
yeah,
different experiences. You know, it's
yeah,
like I even like for example like playing ROMs. You know, like I've played a ROM of a game. Like I played ROMs of games on my phone, on my PC, and on a console. Like, well, not the ROM, but you know, the console version of the game. And they're all different experiences, and it's the same game. You know, it's weird that it's weird because like I agree with you. Like when people talk about like consoles dying, I don't think so. I think especially our generation
yeah,
and older, like consoles are still the to me that's the option. That's that consoles are the thing that I'm the most interested in over either of the other ones. Mobile seems like kind of like they're kind of it reminds me of like an even simpler version of something like the DS where you just have these like very quick on the go games. But it's kind of like I don't know it would be hard to emulate really until like for example till the Switch. I mean you know if you compare console gaming to handheld gaming, like until the Switch, being able to play like big AAA games on the go,
hmm
even handheld gaming and console gaming were completely different. Now they're sort of the same, or they can be, well, not the same, but you know what I mean. They can be utilized in the same device. I mean, do you think we'll eventually get to a point where we can have one like unit or one way of playing games that like can capture all of these ways of playing games? Does that make sense? You know,
like, do you think that we're gonna have one device that functions as a phone, PC, and a
not
console?
necessarily. I just mean like that can offer the sort of same experience of those different ways of playing games. You know,
What different ways?
so like what I'm saying is like when you play a game on PC versus playing on mobile, playing
uh,
versus
well,
playing on console.
no, yeah, like I don't think it's really possible for any of them to really
Yeah.
emulate what it's because like super in-depth strategy games or MMOs are only really possible on PC,
Hmm.
and like by design, like portable games are either a very quick diversion if you're an adult, or like and like if you're a kid, sure, like having a Switch or a DS or like some super in-depth game on a phone is great. But like honestly, like when I got an iPod Touch, I thought I would download all these games and be playing them all the time in my spare time. But like as I got older, um, and I would continue to download all these games for my tablets or my phones, thinking I would have time to play them. I just never did. I would just never play them. Like I just
Hmm.
like I have like two games on my phone now that I like occasionally play if I'm like waiting in line or something, and that's it.
Hmm.
But like it's not it's I don't consider it a serious gaming platform. Like
Yeah.
when I first got it, I thought I would. I thought that I would actually have like a big collection of games on it that I would go to like even when I was at home and like just play on it, but I just don't. Like I just prefer playing games on a console or PC. I don't even really
Do you think
consider.
eventually mobile will become more of a um, will become more of a viable like option for gaming, or you know what I mean, like a more in depth experience, I guess is what I mean,
It's still
than just like
perfectly
a quick.
possible to get in-depth experiences. There's still a whole
Yeah,
generation of kids who
true.
are used to like playing with nothing but a touch screen and can actually be that precise and that
Hmm.
like they can play like twitchy games with a touch screen just as well. But like I didn't grow up using touch screens. Like I didn't learn how to play games using a touch screen, so I just don't. It's just not for me personally. So I don't think for someone of my generation, I don't think that phones will ever match a console.
But I
Like
just mean eventually, I mean, it's kind of like how like now there's many people who are very elderly who a lot of elderly people who really don't know how to use a computer at all, and eventually there's going to be a point where there isn't anybody or barely anybody who knows how to. It's already happening, I mean, eventually, maybe by the time we're old men, everybody will have been born, or a lot of people have been born with some kind of device in their hand where they're much more. I don't know. It's almost more like a second, like kind of um, like a sixth sense or something to them. Like it's just something they do. Whereas to us, it's foreign because we didn't grow up with it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
mm,
so do you think like eventually it's going to get to a point where, um, I don't know, where games change to the point where they're just completely unrecognizable from what they are now?
eh, maybe a little bit. Like they'll get more immersive. Like I think more people will. I think more people will err towards like VR, and more people will go for whatever is the most immersive and realistic and gratifying.
Mm-hmm.
So like games that you play on a screen will probably become a thing of the past. So like even people who are playing stuff on their phones now will become irrelevant because everyone's going to be
So
just
wild. It's so wild to think about. Like it really, like the more you think about it, just it's very strange. So.
yeah. But yeah, I meant more I thought you were asking more if I thought personally that phones would ever match a console, which I don't believe. But yes, for
Oh,
other people.
yeah. I'm sorry. I should have clarified that. Yeah.
But yeah, for other people, yeah, totally. Like I think plus I think with stuff like haptic touch and feedback on screens too, like you're going to get more of an experience that's akin to using a controller
Hmm.
too. So yeah, I think eventually people will adapt. But like again, like it's going to like stuff will become obsolete faster and faster. Like I don't think touch screens are the like pinnacle of are like I think things are going to get more advanced than touch screens.
Oh yeah. Eventually, things will just be, in my opinion, in the same vein as VR, like just holograms. You know?
Yeah, like cyberspace kind of
Yeah,
thing. Like
cyberspace.
if, or like augmented reality. I think it's going to be a big one too.
One of the questions I had, which I think we sort of answered, was, or maybe you didn't, I don't know, but we kind of talked about it, was will console gaming die off?
I think eventually it'll be unrecognizable. Like eventually you're just gonna it's gonna be the same thing that you were talking about, where like you had a whole bunch of devices like a Walkman and a camera and a watch, an alarm clock, or whatever, and now they're all just a phone. Like that's just gonna
Mm-hmm.
happen more and more and more. Like your console, your PC. Even though I was just saying that that's not really. I don't think that's gonna happen overnight. But eventually, like everything you have that qualifies as a computer is just gonna be like either a screen that's like completely just like streaming from the same server, so like you're not actually storing stuff locally on stuff, like you're just streaming stuff to whatever screen you're holding in your pocket at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't
That's
think
that's crazy. That seems like so crazy. That's why I was. That's what I was trying to touch on, but I totally botched how my explanation. So I apologize. But
oh,
that's
that's
what I
okay.
meant by like PC, mobile, and gaming. Because like I said, I really do feel like the three of them at this point are the same experience, or excuse me, are different experiences. But I was wondering that if we're eventually going to get to a point where we're going to have a way of playing those kind of games as and being able to sort of emulate all of those experiences under with one device, or with what I'm saying, or like kind of what you said, just
Yeah,
being able to like go from like using your phone to whatever other device you have, and being able to play interchange between them seamlessly.
I mean, I guess it's
Yeah.
possible that like yeah, I don't know, eventually your phone could just have like a little controller that like folds out of it and then it like projects something onto your eyes, so it seems like it's a screen in front of you or something. I don't know.
That's really cool.
I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think you pretty much covered that. But yeah, sorry, I just botched the explanation of that. To switch gears a little bit, and going kind of bring it again back down to the near future rather than going like way out in space. And I'm sure this is something that that you're passionate about, and I think we are. The future of online and DLC, and also transactions, pay to play, all that stuff. Like, I first of all, want to hear how you think that's going to continue to evolve, and I also want to just hear your like thoughts on it, like what your opinions on it. I know you're probably passionate about this one, so.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not really the type of person who's like
Yeah.
microtransactions are ruining the industry. Like I don't know. I've kind of accepted at this point that they're a pretty normal alternative.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Again, because I've been playing PC games, like that's been a thing in that space for so long that
Mm.
like it's just kind of par for the course. I don't know. Like some people definitely are using it in ways that are like a little questionable. Like it seems like either content or progress is actually being like locked down or hindered in the name of
Yeah, I think Fallout 76 was one that, if I'm right, was everybody was complaining about because they
yeah,
essentially didn't finish or like rush the release or whatever. Didn't really they had to like patch it, like have it put a huge patch on it day one and all this stuff. I mean, do you think it sets a
well,
bad precedent that a company can kind of release a game that isn't even complete and pay charge full price for it and all that? I mean, it seems unfortunate to me that it's being used that way in certain ways. I know that's not, maybe that shouldn't
well,
be the example to use for, as like kind of like a blanket example for everything, but just bad kind of practices like that.
well, I don't really think that Bethesda's getting a pass for it though. Like they're getting
Yeah.
tons of horrible press for this. So like I don't know. I think it sets a bad precedent, sure, but I think that when stuff like that happens, like other companies aren't going to exactly follow suit when everyone hates on them like this.
Yeah.
So I mean, like sure, like early access has like I don't know, like you're seeing like the democratization of development leading to like some bad apples abusing stuff like early
Mhm.
access, and like sure you're seeing some bigger publishers trying to see what they can get away with as they get bigger and bigger, and they're like trying to chase profits more and more, but like there's so many alternatives available that I really think the market just like corrects itself largely. Like I don't think EA is like I think as demonized as they are, they make so much money off of stuff like FIFA and Madden that like they can always just fall back on those franchises, even if everyone kind
Mhm.
of falls out of love with all their other stuff. But I don't know. I'm not really somebody who has like a super negative opinion
Mm.
of that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Um,
Like I think for the most part, early access especially has been like a really good thing. But yeah, like Fallout 76 in particular is a pretty terrible example of
yeah.
just like a company just completely misjudging what they thought they could um, put into a game content wise, like and just capitalize on a trend in terms of like the mechanics that are in there, I guess.
Microtransactions are the ones that get me because there's definitely been, I feel like, a lot of examples where it's just been way overdone. And like, did you hear about, what was it? I think it was like a Call of Duty. They're charging $1 for literally like a dot. Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, look into that. They're charging like $1 for this like little dot thing.
Like a reticle or
It's some kind of like thing like that, or like a skin or something. It's really weird. Yeah.
well, oops. Oh yeah, but I mean, like yeah, but honestly, like stuff like that, like people paying for little minute things that like used to be free. The way I look at it is like, I mean, with a game like that where you're paying $60 for it already, like it's stupid. Like you shouldn't At least you should at least be able to unlock it some other way if you already paid for the game. But if it's a free to play game, like I really don't mind if they have stuff like that because I just feel like other people are just paying for me to play it for free in that
Yeah,
case.
something like Fortnite, you mean?
Yeah, and something like Fortnite, like I
Yeah.
really don't care that they charge like $30 for a
Mhm.
skin because that means that that $30 is going towards making the game better for me to play for free. So I don't care. And
So I guess basically, like if they use it ethically, you're fine.
yeah, it's all about how you use it. Like I'm not opposed to microtransactions or early access, but I just think that how you use it really matters. And like um, obviously a lot of these practices are when they originally were used, like stuff like Kickstarter, early access, they were used in really cool, interesting, and good ways that made games better. But then you always see inevitably with everything, the big publishers capitalize on a trend like that and they like twist it into some ungodly like abomination that doesn't even resemble what the original idea was just to
Yeah,
make profit. Like it happens every time. It
it's
just
nice
goes in
that
cycles.
like gamers and like you said, it's nice that the market kind of like sort of has good regulation in that way because I feel like gamers aren't stupid and they and most like you said, if you get a situation like Fallout 76 and they just you know the press just destroys them and
Yeah.
obviously I think now they're not going to make that same mistake. You know, it's nice that in terms of the gaming industry, that the market is able to uh, really regulate things like that, and that bad practices don't reward, which is nice. You know,
Yeah,
so
like obviously social media isn't perfect and like there's a lot of not so great stuff that happens in terms of like developers interacting with their fans and vice versa. But um, there is also the fact that like you look at there was like a string of games that came out in I think 2017 they were all big profile AAA games that had microtransactions in them seemingly for no reason.
yeah.
Like Need for Speed, Forza. There was a Lord of the Rings game. There was an NBA game. There was like you mentioned. Um, what was the one you mentioned again?
Which one?
Fallout.
Fallout.
No, there was another one. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, there's a whole bunch of games that came out. Oh, Battlefront 2 was another one. I think that was the one I was thinking of. But yeah, but then like people not only piled on these games on social media, but they actually went to their legislators and they actually like petitioned them to like put laws into place to keep these publishers from like selling loot boxes to kids basically. And they like may have kind of blown it out of proportion a little bit by saying they're selling gambling to children or whatever. But like it did make a difference. Like it did get these publishers to kind of stop these practices and it spooked them a little bit. And like you didn't see it
Mm-hmm.
in nearly as many games after that. So like it's nice to see that the industry kind of self-regulate itself in that way, like you said.
Yeah, it's really great, and it's nice that it it just it can actually, like you said, social media actually can be advantageous in that regard because, like you said, I mean, well, they say that there's no bad press, but I don't think that's necessarily true when it comes to a major
Not
studio
anymore,
developing a
because now people
AAA
know
game.
how to like kind of weaponize bad press with like advertisers or
Yeah.
whatever. It's a little different than it used to be. I think that any press is good press isn't quite the same. Isn't quite true anymore.
Yeah. Well, I guess to wrap it up here, I guess the last thing I'll ask is just like, what are you most excited about, like in terms of just from this year to like the year, well, we'll be dead by the year 3000, but like just for next 70 years, like what is it that what are you most looking forward about with gaming? Is
Well,
VR like a big thing, or are you
yeah, I
just
think
looking forward
honestly.
to seeing where the next generation of console is, or go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think honestly, VR is probably what I'm the most excited about. Like once VR becomes affordable, and like if some of the stuff they predicted in stuff like Ready Player One like actually come true, like it would be pretty crazy to be able to just like immerse yourself in any world you want to, like any any property that you ever saw growing up, like you can just recreate that world like perfectly. Like, I mean, if that actually becomes a reality, a virtual reality, then I'd be pretty happy.
Oh man. The
I think that's probably what I'm looking forward to the most, honestly. Is just
other
like,
thing we didn't touch on really very much was AI. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that for a second, in terms of, you know, like you had mentioned, I think it was in your 2018
yeah, and
best of 2018. You were
I
talking about the
touched
AI
on it
in Red
briefly.
Dead and whatnot.
Yeah, I
So
definitely in that game, like, I mean, it's not amazing. Like, it's not doing anything that you wouldn't expect a video game character to do, really. But people are sometimes, remembering stuff and reacting to stuff in on a deeper level, on a more realistic level than you would really expect them to. And I think that's just going to continue, where like you don't, and you're gonna start to question whether these things, are self-aware or not, more and
yeah,
more. Um, and I mean, whether or not that's actually going to become a thing anytime soon is really, that seems to be debated a lot these days. Like whether or not AI is going to progress at the same kind of exponential rate that other technology does, or whether or not, some people are right and it's really not as smart as we think it is, and it's going to take a lot longer for it to be able to match a human brain than we think. Like, and I think it's somewhere in between. Like, I think there's certain stuff that they're going to be capable of, that AI is going to be capable of, that we could never do. But then there's also certain ways of thinking that I don't think they're going to be capable of within our
hmm
lifetimes. So I don't think it's anything to be paranoid about or to worry about. But yeah, I think it's definitely going to become a bigger part of our lives, where we're going to see things like AI assistants. Like we're already seeing, Amazon Echo and Google Home invading people's homes. Like it's only going to become
yeah,
more and more of a thing. Eventually, they're going to start getting up and walking around and bringing you drinks and whatever. Like they're already vacuuming our houses. They're already answering our questions and playing our music for us, and analyzing
great.
our pictures to figure out whether it's an animal or a plant or a plate of food or whatever. Like they're just slowly encroaching into our lives more and more. It's only going to happen faster and faster.
Yeah, it'll be crazy to really see where things go in the next even 10 years, 20 years. Um, but I mean, I guess I mean specifically with gaming too. Like, do you think AI is going to play like a really big part in gaming in the future? Or
Well, yeah, like I mean, it's still, I don't know, like it doesn't really seem like the AI of enemies has gotten like a lot different over the past 10 or 15 years to me.
I would agree.
Um, and I mean, like in some games, it is getting better. Like in The Last of Us, for example, it's pretty good. And I'm trying to think of it. Like, I don't know. Like, honestly, like when the original Half-Life came out and those soldiers were doing things like flanking you and throwing grenades back at you and stuff like that. Like, we haven't really, I'm not saying we haven't progressed beyond that, but like, I think people are just putting more focus on graphics than they are on improving AI in games. Um, I think some
That's
developers,
always been something that I've felt a little critical about. Is like, you know, graphics are great, and I'm not saying graphics aren't, but there's always such an emphasis on them, and it's one dimension of the experience. I
yeah,
mean, it's not. It was ever since like God, I remember the GameCube days, N64, PlayStation games. Like, oh, this game's got the best graphics, blah 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 blah. And back then, it mattered a little more because the graphics weren't as good. But like, we're at a point now where like even the Switch is bad, like as not bad, but uh, even though it doesn't have nearly the power the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox. I think the graphics are pretty impressive, but PlayStation 4, I mean, some of the games that like something like Red Dead, I mean, it's unbelievable.
hmm
And I think we're getting to the point with graphics where it's now just like the graphic, like yes, you strive to make things better, right? But like the graphics are so good that like now it's, to me, it's nitpicking. I mean, but it could be for me. I don't know. I've never really been. one who really cared about graphics. To me, the gameplay is the most important thing. But I don't know. There's always such an emphasis on it, and it's like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff in Red Dead that made it more realistic for me was just like the animations, I guess. Like a lot of the ways the animals behave and interact with each other is cool. Like
Yeah.
I think with games like AI interacting with each other and like emergent like situations like that is where it's really interesting.
Yeah.
But I don't think with most games at least you're not really going to have them programming characters that like have like emotions and who are like venturing outside their script very often because there's just not that much room for that. There's no budget for that
Mm-hmm.
because so many people are trying to tell a very linear story in games.
Yeah.
So I mean, at least from AAA games, like unless somehow the budgets go down and like we find a way to like produce these huge photorealistic environments for less money, like they're just I don't think they're ever going to invest as much in the AI. At least
Mm-hmm.
at least in the in the immediate future. Like I think costs are going to go down over time though. So eventually, eventually we'll have games like that. I think with VR too, like you're going to see more of a focus on games that are about like interpersonal relationships and are a lot more about like empathy and not so much about like some big action story. So
Yeah.
like I think with the advent of VR games, you're going to see more of a focus on AI than
I guess it
traditional
makes sense
games.
because you're going to want to make it, you're going to want it to evoke some kind of emotion or some kind of you want people to have a more interpersonal connection with the world and with the game, with the characters, because you're immersing yourself in the world. So it makes you feel like you're part of the world.
Yeah,
And I could see that being much more integral than like, you know, just the graphics.
and that's why a lot of more like artsy developers are starting to use the term experience instead of game because
Mm-hmm.
they don't like to focus on the word game because it kind of the expectation of it being fun isn't necessarily always correct with a lot of their aims, and I think that's fair. And I think
So
like there's a
changing
lot
the
of
wording kind of changes the how you look at it. Instead of
yeah,
calling it a game, a fun game, you're calling it an experience to have.
yeah, and I mean I think that's fair because like a lot of people there is a lot of baggage that comes with that word, and there's like a lot of
True.
derision that has come at games that kind of venture outside the idea of what a game should be over the years.
That makes sense. Well, anyway, I think we should wrap it up, and I know we're probably getting close to an hour, if not at an hour. Um, man,
Yeah.
we covered a lot of stuff, man. We covered next gen of consoles, like future of like the main three companies, VR, microtransactions, PC, mobile, all of it. As always, James, it was really awesome, thoughtful, great conversation.
That
As
was yeah, that
always.
was fantastic. That was
Yeah.
fun. That was a lot of fun.
Well, we're gonna have to do more. So James is the first Let's Get Real guest, and hopefully I'll have many more, and James and I'll have many more discussions to go. Make sure you guys check out his channel, BaconMob. I often guest and do conversations like this. We usually cover stuff like E3 and Nintendo Directs and whatnot, and he usually is streaming some kind of game. He mostly does like indie games and like you were doing Red Dead and stuff like that. So just check out Bacon Mob's channel. It'll be in the description below.
Thank you.
And as always, guys, I want to thank you guys, everybody, for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And again, thanks a bunch, James. Thanks for joining me.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Cool. No problem. All right, guys. See you next time.
Peace.
Peace.